Hi, everyone. Welcome to Appliance Advisors with Yale Appliance, or I should say welcome back to Appliance Advisors with Yale Appliance. We've been off for a little bit since before the new year, so we hope you all had a great new year, great holiday season. We're excited to be back now, and we got a little bit of a different format for all of you this year. So, with some new things here this year, celebrating 100 years also at Yale Appliance, so we're excited about that. And just as we mentioned before, we're going kind of from a weekly show to an every other week show. And as always, every week, I'm going to be joined by our VP of Sales, Dennis McDonald. And every other week, too, at least here kind of for the next short term here, we're really excited to bring you all some guests and some different people within the industry. And today, we're super excited to have with us Jodi Swartz. Jodi is owner and principal designer of KitchenVisions out of the Metro West area here in Massachusetts. And we're really excited to talk to Jodi about design and to see what she talks to customers about, what she's seeing out there for trends. And quite honestly, we love these episodes with some guests because we learn so much on these too. And, for us, it's just a lot of great knowledge and a lot of great information. So we're sure you're going to get all the same. Dennis, nice to see you again.
Yeah, great to be back, Fran. Jodi, welcome. It's funny. We can be honest. People are just tired of listening to us. We can talk appliances all day, and we think we're interesting. But at a certain point, talking to Jodi yesterday was just a whole different level. Her professionalism and really, it's asked all the time. We certainly, of course, dabble a lot in the kitchen business, but really hearing from a professional that deals with the whole process was amazing. So we did do a little bit of a dry run, just talking through some concepts yesterday, and I know I enjoyed it. I'm sure the listening audience today is going to enjoy it. And Jodi, we're so happy to have you here. So welcome to Appliance Advisors.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. It's awesome. I mean, where else would I rather be than talking to the folks from Yale? I feel like, I have like work husbands there.
Yes, some great projects for sure. And we're going to hop right into it. Remember, again, as always, if you have questions, you can drop it into the chat. I think we're going to have a lot of information coming out of here. So if we don't get to them all today, as we always promise, we'll answer those questions at the end. But why don't we dive into some topics and some things that we know over the time the listening audience has certainly asked us when it comes to everything related to cabinets and the construction process throughout.
Absolutely. And I think we just start kind of right from the very basics. So when you're first meeting a client, your first appointment, your first phone call, the first time you touch base with that client, what exactly is that process like for you? What are your first questions that you're asking that potential client?
The first question I usually ask is about budget, right? Because it's, we just become more realistic about what is, what's out there and, what people can technically get for their money today. And we all know that prices have gone up a little bit during the pandemic, et cetera. But so, things have changed, but they haven't changed that much. People are always a little surprised. So it's always kind of, we're going to give you the bad news first, and then we're going to talk and work our way through it. I direct people to something called the Cost versus Value Report, which was put out by Harvard Center for Joint Housing Studies and Remodeling Magazine. And it's basically a kind of a touchstone on what certain projects are over the course of many years. And I do tell people, look at it, read the descriptions. You'll probably be somewhere in between these numbers, but it's at least, it makes people understand you can't do a kitchen, for a slight amount of money. You really have to, it's an investment, and over the course of time, you can amortize it. And one of the things that these economists from Harvard have said that if you stay in your house for 5 years, whatever you put into your project, you're going to get out of it. So that's number one. All right. And so hopefully people can put that investment in. Mm-hmm. For me, it's a little harder to, believe it or not, to kind of sell sometimes a kitchen to, say, somebody who's just bought a house in this market, right? Because they're trying to chew on the fact that they've already bought a home for more money than they've spent, and they thought they were going to spend, right? But it's been a great time for people to do remodeling who have a lot of equity in their home. So because they're realizing there's not a lot of places to go to give up, say, a bigger home for a much smaller space somewhere else, and realize that it's going to cost them the same amount of money because of the cost of real estate. So that's one of the first questions. The second question is ventilation. I always have to figure out the way to, it's not about the pretty picture and the pretty kitchen. First, I have to figure out how we're going to build it, because the difference between a kitchen designer and an interior designer in some cases, I mean, don't get me wrong, interior designers, some of them are very, very knowledgeable, but it isn't just about picking tiles and cabinet colors. It's really the construction and how are we going to deal with the mechanical part of the kitchen. So HVAC is a big, plumbing. How are we going to get, without going some strange circuitous route through the basement, up through the rafters, in through a closet? How are we going to get the ventilation and odors and grime out of your kitchen, especially, if people cook with a lot of oils, it's, et cetera. A lot of people doing cooktop cooking, not as nearly as much cooking on their ovens. A lot of people do cooking on their cooktops. So that's the second question. Obviously sink placement, how many walls do we have? If your oven is on a sidewall and it's not ventilated, or you have a micro hood or something like that, if you want to really beef this up, if I'm going to now put it on an exterior wall, do I have to move your sink? Are we creating an island? So, but those are the types of things. Do I have the space to do it? Can we put in a bow vent? This is all the mechanical issues to do that. So those are usually, and then what kind of appliances do you want? This is your dream kitchen, right? What kind of appliances do you want? Let's go take a look at those first. There's a little bit of lead time. And what do your appliances look like? I mean, what your cabinets look like as well?
Jodi, I think that's why you're so great, and we like working with you. I mean, because, it is funny when people first come to us, and it sounds like you as well. We've all learned through trial and error and things that have gone wrong, and you remember them, and you remember really what's important, because the folks want to come in and they want to pick the appliances that they've been dreaming of, or the cabinets that they want to get to the fun stuff. And it sounds like we both kind of slow them down and be like, okay, let's get some of this block and tackle right. Let's talk about budget, so that we're trying to avoid the aha moments. Case in point, ventilation, and when it's not done ahead of time, and now you realize, oh wow, there's a lot of hidden expenses to put the vent where we thought we could put it. So, I mean, I think that's really important for folks when they're out there thinking about their kitchen, getting in with a professional that asks those questions that maybe they didn't initially want to get into, that are so important to get into, because then the fun stuff is fun, because now you already know your obstacles or your challenges, or really their needs and wants. So those are great points, and it sounds like a great process you have going on there.
Yeah, I literally had something happen yesterday where I found out that once we did some, on Beacon Hill, once we did some preliminary work, really scoping things out, that I've got this 5-foot wide chimney that really, we didn't think it was really being used, but it turns out there was a flue there. So we were going to have to modify all these cabinets with a chase to try and get everything out into the one open part of the flue that was 3 feet away from the hood. And I called the store and I spoke to Paul Gillis, and I said, is there a way I can do this as a recirculating hood? Right. And sure enough, yes, we could. And it was, I called the contractor. He said, as long as Boston will allow us to, if they'll allow you to do a recirculating hood, then let's just go that route. It will be worth the $150 or
yeah, sure.
whatever the kit is, $200,
yes.
rather than modifying all the cabinets for a chase.
Yeah.
That we're going to be glass across the top.
Yeah, so at least presenting the client with options is important, so they can make those budgetary decisions. Hey, if you want to do this, you can do this, but here's the things to think about, right? Because a lot of times when internet has brought up so much information that they just think everything's possible. And it's a lot of times people probably say, well, I guess anything is possible, but let's talk about the budget. Let's talk about timing. Let's talk about all those things and make sure that it's realistic.
And also what the inspectors will allow, because they, at the end of the day, the inspectors are gods in each town, right? Sometimes it's their own little fiefdoms, whatever,
for sure.
Right. Yep. And so I have to defer to them. So it's not unusual to just call an inspector and say, is this kosher?
Great point. Great points.
Absolutely.
What else?
So another thing that we definitely talk a lot about here with appliances is trends and colors and things like that. And certainly in the design world, I'm sure that comes up all the time. So what are some trends that you're seeing for this year on cabinet colors and hardware, things like that?
So are the cabinet colors, certainly we were working with blues, we've worked with greens, but I'm not working with as much of the navy blue anymore. I'm not working, we're working with some brighter colors, which is really nice. We're not working with like the deep tavern British green as much. We're working with some nicer, brighter, working with turquoises. We work with red. I'm working on a kitchen that's going to have like a plum colored component to it. So
Wow.
people are starting to be in their home and say, I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm not going to worry as much about what resale is going to be. Because
Really?
frankly, a lot of people are kind of saying, this is the forever home. And I said, there are great people out there who can paint your cabinets. And I
For
just
sure.
had a meeting earlier this morning with somebody who paints cabinets. So at the end of the day, somebody doesn't like the color blue you chose, which is this beautiful denim blue.
Yeah.
Let them go paint it white or orange if they want. Black has turned into a great color. That's become a very, very trendy color for us. Woods are back, which is wonderful. The light woods, the kind of that Scandinavian white oak type of look, as well as darker. Walnuts have never gone out of style, but lots of times we pair them. We'll make a two-tone space because an all-white kitchen can start feeling a little stark.
Yeah.
And it also takes a ton of abuse on the base cabinets. So it's not unusual to keep it light where you're walking in. When you look at something, you're looking at it straight ahead.
Sure.
So, if it's a little bit heavier below, that's okay. It grounds it to the floor. It brings in perhaps the wood of the wood tone, which is nice, pulls out a tone of the wood. So it's not unusual to be able to work with different tones of wood, which warms up the space.
Yeah, you had mentioned even when we were talking yesterday a little bit of kind of some darker colored stains as well being kind of.
I
more
love
popular
espresso
now.
stains, a charcoal gray, really, because the pale grays. If people read enough that gray is on its way out, they're probably not going to want gray. Gray will always be, it will be a constant. It's a neutral. It really is.
Right.
You have to add some pops of color around it, otherwise it just starts feeling really clinical with the white.
Right.
And everything could be gray and white, but do something great on your counter, do something great on a window treatment, whatever, make that space feel a little bit more interesting. One of my favorite homes that I ever walked into had gray as a neutral throughout, but it was all different tones of gray. And the kitchen was black and white and gray, and there was a bedroom that was gray and navy, and another bedroom that was gray and burgundy, and another that was gray and yellow, and the living room and dining room was gray and red. And it was probably one of the prettiest spaces I've ever seen. But it was all different tones, and it just worked together. It was the designer who worked on it did a fabulous job. So I'm not going to say gray is dead. I'm not putting it to rest. It's got to be the right tones.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because we definitely felt that. I don't know if it was COVID. I don't have any science behind this, but certainly a big rush to even colored appliances again. Kind of like that white gray thing got old. And maybe that was people living in their spaces in their homes a lot more. We certainly knew we had a lot of renovation through COVID and continue through on the backside. Because I think people started to really look around their house and be like, wow, I'm seeing the same. It's kind of boring. I'm looking at it every day. So appliances, absolutely, you see in our stores, we're doing a ton of new display work on all these new colors because I think people are ready for some changes and kind of, to your point, go out there a little bit.
Black stainless, I think that's gorgeous, really. And I, love, the black ranges,
yeah, a lot of matte colors coming in. Yeah.
A higher end, and for sure, the Blue Star. I think one of the things you showed was a burgundy, like a
right.
deep,
Yes.
burgundy orange, Blue Star. That client originally was using their regular refrigerator, and he wasn't going to get rid of it. He was not giving up his full depth stainless steel refrigerator, but he was going to get his Blue Star range. And we put it all together. He went, I got to have that Blue Star. I have to have that.
Yeah. Great insights. Great insights.
Speaking of colors, and we talked about white, and obviously, we've seen a lot of white kitchens throughout the years. Is there any colors that you still consider to be classic or timeless that you think just kind of never goes away, or is always part of some sort of kitchen design, that sort of thing?
I particularly love, creams. I think, that those are warmer colors to, work with. So if somebody even has they're doing a white kitchen, I really like to warm up the walls with colors that have a little bit maybe more taupes in them, or has a touch of yellow in it or something like that. So to just, again, to warm up the space, especially here in New England, you have so many oak floors, right? Everybody's
Right.
got an oak floor.
Right.
Oak floors tend to look a little bit more orange or a little, right?
Yes.
So, unless people have and even if they don't, even if they put a stone on it and it ends up being more like a gray wash or whatever, to warm up the walls seem to be a little, it seems to work very, very well. I love working with colored cabinets. I'm putting in a, kind of a turquoisey green kitchen right now, and we're trimming it up in a dark cherry, which is really an interesting colorway, and it's going to look fantastic. White counters have become incredibly popular. You can't go to a stone company, fabricator, without seeing 7 or 8 different lines of quartzes that don't look like they have all kinds of marble veinings to them. But those marble veinings now are going to have they actually have some orange in them. They have golds, they have navy blues, they have greens, they have blacks. It's not just the Carrara marble look or the Calicata look. They're playing with color a lot more. So to make it, make it different.
Yeah.
To make it pop.
Yeah, Cheryl, if we go to the right here, Cheryl actually asked a good question. It's funny because I can tell you I see this, but, I'll defer to you again. Wallpaper's coming back. I mean, you're seeing wallpaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of my dear friends owns a wallpaper and paint store in Natick, and they have their designers there, and they're working on wallpapers all the time, and it is a ton of fun. We just did something for the National Association of Realtors where they're talking about color in homes, and wallpaper was huge. So they quoted us just this past week. That went live, and wallpaper is great. So people are having a lot of fun with it, and a lot of people are custom coloring wallpaper as well.
Right. Now, last question, then we'll go to our next topic. But Jeff does ask about, is there a trade group representing kitchen designers looking for a directory of pros near Seattle? I mean, certainly you can start with NKBA, National Kitchen and Bath Association. They're always great professionals. They have to continue to do continuing education units or credits to continue their certification. So always top notch there. You do lead into Jodi's the head of a local chapter here, or on the board of a local chapter. And I mean, we talked yesterday even about your projects and how you bring in these trade professionals from these groups, just like he's asking. And your group is amazing. We work with a lot of them, obviously. And why don't you speak a little bit about the benefit of a group?
Yeah, so the trade groups, I mean, probably out in your area, there's probably NARI is one in our general area. We work with Bragby, and we work with Pro New England, and there are some other pro groups throughout I believe throughout the East Coast. I think there's about 13 different chapters. A little bit, which is Professional Remodeling Organization, is what that stands for, and it is great. When you work with people that you work and trust, that you know and trust, it's great because you're all kind of responsible. When you see these people at meetings all the time, right?
Yes.
You absolutely say, "Hey, did you get back to my client?"
Yes.
So you really, I can't, and I was discussing that with someone this morning, I can't refer people unless I know they're going to follow up. And I know that the people that I work with a dozen different contractors. I know that they're going to follow up. I know that they work with tradespeople, right? That need to follow up to them. And that's why I don't tell people to be their own GC. It's just not a great idea because, first of all, it will take so long. By the time you get a plumber to come to your house, when that plumber is always working with other GCs that are constantly feeding them work, they're responsible they have to be trusted to get that repeat business. If you're just the one-off homeowner, it's not really a great idea to GC. It will take twice as long to find people, and your schedule will you'll be out of your home for so long.
Yeah, it's funny. Obviously, you're involved in Pro New England for sure, and we went to those awards. And you see the people. You said it, when you have that tight network of professionals that you work with on a project, as opposed to GCing yourself. Someone would win an award for a kitchen or a renovation, and the different awards. And you'd see so many people in that room that had a piece of that project. I mean, it was like everyone won the award, right? So there's a lot of pride in making sure that goes well across the
It's
whole
true.
project.
We have these trade pros, and as I mentioned when we discussed yesterday, just because you hire a general contractor does not necessarily mean that he's going to be there every minute of every day. It never ever happens, because what he's done is he's put together a schedule, and he has his trusted subs that will show up there. Even the trusted subs, even if he hires a plumber or an electrician, that electrician might be bringing in one of their own representatives from their organization, a journeyman, or, sometimes depending a novice. It's very, very possible. So it's important, again, to have somebody who knows the process, right? Knows the process. So it is great when we all work together, because we're on the phone with each other constantly to make sure that person, and we're documenting everything. So
Right.
everything's, we try emails. I put together a book that's on site so that there are no questions. And if there are any questions, my number's really, really big on there. So ask questions before you cut, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah, definitely.
Measure twice, cut once is what they say.
And I think that's important to note, Jodi, because it was clear in talking to you that the passion of the whole project, start to finish, and being a massive part of kind of pulling it all together was something you're prideful in, which is, I think, super important in any project. Sometimes people will go and try to find a low cost cabinet person and just buy cabinets, or buy them through these clubs or a box store, any of these crazy ideas, be their own GC. And that we just see people spending good money after bad trying to fix all these problems. But really, the things you put in place on your jobs, when every day, not everyone's going to be there to kind of keep it cohesive, is the difference from that homeowner feeling like, wow, it's running smoothly, and I know where to refer people as they come in and out of our home, as opposed to them having to figure it out as a homeowner. So it's really great that you provide that kind of level of detail.
Yeah, and it does help alleviate some of those problems, right? These common problems that we encounter all the time. Clearances, right? We deal with clearances all the time. People buy a refrigerator, a range. They buy, a lot of people don't realize what's going to happen when they place their island and their dishwasher opens up and they can't get beyond it, or their oven door comes out, or they put an oven next to a refrigerator and the refrigerator door opens up and whacks into the oven handle, and all of a sudden now it's like having a car. It's the first ding. Well, you've put a huge ding on your refrigerator door. You don't want to do that. So it is great to be able to hire a professional who's able to go ahead and understands the clearances, really, really reading the specs, and understands. And trust me, I've, over the course of the 16 years that I've been doing this as technically a second career, so I remodeled 11 homes. I have remodeled 11 homes, and I've moved a few times. I personally found those I personally encountered some of those pitfalls myself, right?
For sure.
So,
it's a huge point, because you do dive into the details, obviously, and not speaking ill, but a lot of times the customer is put in the middle of those details, and it's kind of like, well, you bought appliances, or you bought this tile, or the different nuances to dimension and make sure it all fits in the end. And there's this pushback. Sometimes, there's certain cabinet folks that'll be like, well, you got to go to the appliance salespeople, and you can feel the customer being tugged in the middle. Now, we certainly, I think everyone on this call would dive in and say, all right, let's try to round everybody together here and make sure that this customer feels surrounded on the project. But I know working on your jobs is just really easy, because you just do that.
But it doesn't mean that there's not problems.
Correct.
I had somebody today. It's just, I tried to explain, people, and I say this, number one, something will go wrong, right? I mean, I don't sugarcoat that. Something will go wrong. It just depends on how quickly you can react to it and fix it, right? I had a situation where I've had an issue with paint color. I don't understand why the cabinets were the whitest white. How is it possible that the fillers came in even whiter? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely right.
But he doesn't even offer that color white, this bright white, paper white. I don't understand. How did that happen? But, we will fix it. But the important thing to understand is that people make these cabinets. It's not perhaps something that's molded out of stainless steel, right?
Yes.
These are made
Yes.
on, these are made in plants. People build them, people paint them, people ship them, people drive them, they
Yes.
unload them, they unwrap them, then they start with a screw gun. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And your walls aren't straight and your ceilings aren't straight and your floors aren't straight. So at the end of the day, this was not made in plastic from a little Tykes factory, right?
Sure.
We don't have a
Sure.
little Tykes car.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's always a little something that's going to be off, and we have to kind of figure out how to take the curse off of, I have a ceiling right now that's literally, an inch out of level in a very short period of time. They're not going to straighten out their ceiling. So
Sure.
you know what? We're going to do the best we can and then shut your eyes and pretend you didn't see it, because after 5 minutes, it will go away.
Yes.
You're just not going to be staring at your ceiling all the time. You're going to be reaching for your dishes, and your things are going to be on your counters and everything else. But I can't fix the fact that your ceiling is, we can feather it a little bit. We can play with the fascia molding and the crown molding, but that's the best we can do.
Yeah. Managing expectations and setting them up for success. What do we have next coming up, Fran?
So back to cabinets, and this is certainly something that we deal with on the appliance side, and certainly affects appliance installation. Inset versus overlay cabinets, kind of just some of the differences there, and what do you see more of?
So there's a few differences there, and so inset is really more of a furniture style, right? So the cabinet, I like to say that an inset cabinet is a 6-sided box. Is what it is. So it's got a frame around it, and then the cabinet door sits inside the frame, right? So it's just a cube, a rectangle, whatever it is. And that door sits inside that frame, of which that frame is usually, let's say, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches or so. And technically it's really flat. They either have exposed hinges or they have hidden hinges. You do get exactly the same amount of space inside the cabinets themselves. You don't get the same amount of space inside the drawers. That's
Okay.
important to know.
Yeah.
Now that's framed inset. Framed overlay, so if we talk about overlay, is basically the same thing, except the door sits on top of the box. We go into a lot of homes where, a builder threw up boxes and they do these framed overlay boxes. It's a modified overlay. So there's these big gaps between the doors, right? And and so you see the frames. Those are things we never install. So that's not something I would sell someone. But I would sell somebody a framed full overlay cabinet, which leaves about a 1/4 inch on either side in between the doors. Still, now that door sits on top of the frame. Still a frame box. It's still a 6-sided box.
Right.
Framed full overlay, also called European overlay, right? Frameless full overlay. European cabinets, okay, are basically a 5-sided box, and the door and the drawers are the 6th side of the box.
Mm-hmm.
So there's basically the box is 3/4 inch, or in some companies 5/8 of an inch. And the hinges just sit right there, and the hinges on the door, and you have the full access inside that cabinet. You get actually more space inside the drawers because you're not dealing with the frames themselves. The drawer doesn't have to fit. But you've been in people's homes, where you have to kind of open up a door and reach around a frame, or you go to pull something out.
Yes.
And the hinge is in the way. So that's kind of what that framed cabinet looks like.
Got it.
Some people don't care. It definitely looks more like furniture. It definitely has the tolerances. I like to tell, full overlay has less curse to your eye. Okay.
Yeah.
It takes the curse off. There's lots of adjustments that you can make to the hinges. When it's actually inset, I tell people it's not for the faint of heart.
Yes.
Because the cabinet door will swell within that space, so it contracts in the winter, right? It expands in the summertime because of just the humidity in the air. And you will totally see this, you might only see like a 32nd of an inch on the top, and you might see this bigger gap in the, listen, I mentioned to Dennis, I give people phone numbers before I leave their projects and say, here, here's a handyman who will come in and adjust your cabinets as you wish. And here's a touch-up guy who will come in, because and I don't think we touched upon this, but a painted finish will always, almost always, have some kind of expansion and contraction at some point in the, especially if people are working with stiles and rails. They just, it expands, and all of a sudden you have that crack in that finish when you're working with, like, say, a shaker door. Usually you want to go through an entire heating and cooling system, seasons, okay, almost a full year. And then you can have somebody come back and spray and touch that up. And sometimes, but again, you don't want to be of the faint of heart. A fully painted cabinet, it doesn't matter if you've got the best, I'll say, Christopher Peacock kitchen, okay,
Sure,
right? Or a stock cabinet line will always have some expansion and contraction. Same thing, because you've got a 5-piece door. Problem sometimes we have, is, do we just want to do like an all MDF door? And sometimes, and that doesn't move as much.
Right. Yeah, it's a great point. Inset in New England is popular. You have a lot of people do it. And we do, we run into it all the time because we do a lot of appliance installations, and particularly with a lot of these refrigerators now wanting to sit completely flush for that look. And when they do that inset cabinet, as you know, those lines around the refrigerator are very polarizing depending on the person, right? So if somebody's very type A and is going to pick this stuff up, they can see the expansion and contraction to the point that, and as well, even on, there's not a lot of forgiveness on floors that are slightly not level. And then you factor in installing appliances, which is a specialty all unto itself. In this year, we've actually taken the stance, and we've looked at it, and we're like, gosh, we're spending the money having to go and fix a lot of these installations that we didn't do, trying to help the customer out, because maybe a lot of times it was the installer doesn't do it every day, and maybe there are some adjustments, but more so the cabinets. So now for $100, we'll install a built-in refrigerator in 2023.
Yeah,
Putting the panels on, because we
fantastic.
want to just make it easy for everybody and try to get the best result we can, because it's all we do.
Yeah, that is fantastic that you're doing that, because I have literally told almost every contractor that I work with that if I'm working, especially if we're working with anything with panels, that you folks need to, you folks need to install that.
Right.
There's just no doubt. It's just it's confusing for some of them.
Yeah, and time consuming. Yeah, so for sure.
I mean, they get paralyzed.
So you talked a little bit about problems and how they definitely will happen. And, listen, we say the same thing with appliances too, especially through COVID. It's like, time frames and things like that, they will certainly adjust. So you talked about some paint colors, things like that, but what are some of the more common problems that you run into?
Well, as I mentioned, we've got, clearance problems are usually my number one issue. Where we just want to make sure that doors don't open up into other doors and drawers. It's like I just had a kitchen that I'm installing right now in Acton, and the client said to me when she took a look at it, we have a kind of a blind cabinet next to a range. She said, wow, you wasted all this space. You kind of wasted all this space. You've got this giant 6-inch filler there. Yeah. Why do I need that giant 6-inch filler on either side? And I said, I just want you to pretend. I said, here's where your oven is going to be, and here's your oven handle. I said, yes. And your drawer will not come out unless I'm able to. Now yes. I'm going to have a great magic corner inside this unit, this corner unit, and it will swivel out and it will get beyond your range, and but these drawers will interfere with handles. So that's really a big issue. Mm-hmm. Certainly the problems of, we're dealing with shipping, I want to say shipping or just lead times, right? So, and more importantly right now is the builds are just taking a little bit longer, or a lot longer, I should say. Right. So the storage facilities are being filled up with storage of cabinets. And I'm not sure about your appliances. Yeah. They're just being filled up. So they can't take in anymore, and the jobs aren't ready because other things are holding up their job, right? So that's another thing that takes some time. And that's a little bit of a pitfall. In addition, living in Boston, we're dealing with some small spaces, right? So, you brownstones, we have to crane things in.
Correct.
We have to crane in cabinets. We're craning in appliances up to roofs or up to fire, up,
Yeah.
because we can't go up those little those
Right.
little stairs in brownstones.
Right.
So that's happening as well. So it just becomes, something to think about. And it amazes me how many people don't think about how many times you offer a service, which is great. You send somebody out to say,
Right.
are you going to be able to maneuver this refrigerator and even get it into that space?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially living in a city near Boston and just in general, we a lot of times you're replacing appliances and they have an existing island and they have this big fridge or stove that went in before that island went in. And now we got to get the old one out, put the new one in, and this thing weighs 600 pounds. How do we get it over the island? So yeah, some of those hidden things. But I think the big thing is just that is asking those questions, offering the services. I mean, we do those free site checks, but even on your end, it's music to our ears when cabinet folks do engage with us, and we should be doing a good job back to you to make sure that we are thinking about that for the homeowner. Because to their point, that's what we do every day. They probably didn't think about the handle clearance and that door clearing. But for the folks that don't do that, or when people don't get the right professional to help them, we deal with that all the time. And a lot of times it's tears. The kitchen's in, they came home and they couldn't believe that the person actually installed the cabinet knowing that it hits day one. Like, and you actually put it in and put the counter on top, and now we got,
Right.
Well,
Right.
we've
But
all been there.
again,
Yeah.
that contractor who you hired may not have had that person installing that cabinet and pulling it correctly to where it may have needed to be. I mean, how many times, it's really funny. I quite often only leave 23 and 5/8 for a dishwasher because that's all it needs, because otherwise I get these black decor strips. I think that's actually what they call it, decor strips, because
Yes.
it's going to a 24-inch opening. So, I mean, this is like, I feel like a doctor right now. It sounds a little clinical, right?
We are professors. I mean, technically, maybe not without the degree, but I feel like I'm an appliance
But I
professor.
scratch my head sometimes why did you leave 24 inches when it says 23 and 5/8?
For sure.
Because that's all I want, because that's all I need to keep it looking. And frankly, this could be stock cabinetry. Doesn't matter. I could be working with stock. I work with stock. We work with semi-custom, custom manufacturers. But I could be working with stock cabinetry. I could still leave 23 and 5/8, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I end up with this. We're working with all white cabinets, let's just say. Now I got the black decor strips, just because somebody decided you always leave 24 inches for.
Mm-hmm. And so important, we say it all the time, we fight. I know you certainly run into it a lot, which is certain manufacturers as well arm you, the designer, with more detailed information to make those installations and your cabinet ordering easy. Because sometimes you're guessing, right?
Thank you, like Sub-Zero and Wolf and Thermador and even, and the Bosches. It's easy. They make it very, very easy to, some other, it is not unusual for me to call up a manufacturer and say, decipher this for me. Where do I find this?
Right.
And we know who they are, and a couple of others, where it's just I'm not understanding. You're not making this easy for the designers to do that, because not everybody can buy Sub-Zero and Wolf and Thermador, all the time. So there are other companies that also, draw me a diagram. You don't have to tell me. All I need to know is what's the opening and how do I fit it in there and how do I prep the space, especially double ovens or whatever. Does it need a shelf? Whatever it is. How do I prep the space? What's the overall space I need so the drawers and doors won't interfere with this cabinet, which is the right cabinet to order for this.
Right. Okay.
Well, through the conversation, it's great because we've kind of already led into some of our questions. And the next question really was, is there any specific appliance brand or type of appliance that you recommend your clients work with? And you did mention some brands that certainly provide great specs and design details. So
I still love the look of a range,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to keep it really prominent, at the cooktop, like range. So I do like that. Some people don't like to bend. Let's face it, right? But a lot of people, I just like the space that it has. I like the fact that you're able to put a lot of dishes inside of it. You're right there. You don't have to walk around a space. As a designer, one of the things I will tell people is if I have to put something across a room, across from an island, right? Or on the other side of an island, it would be an oven, double ovens, because you put something in and an hour later you take it out, whatever.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you don't have to feel like a short order cook, right? Putting something into an oven across the way. And of course, then you want to be able to pivot to something so that there's a landing space for it if you take something out. A lot of times you see these these walls of tall cabinetry, but where are you going to put that down if there's nothing next to an oven, or even sometimes next to a refrigerator where you're trying to juggle, especially French door refrigerators, right? How do you take something out of a French door refrigerator, right? Use two hands and then put something in, at some point you have to put it down and then put it in. So ergonomically, it's something that we try to look at designing for. And I'll put a refrigerator across the room if I have to, but ideally I try to put a refrigerator quite often where sometimes ovens are or might have been.
Right.
Why I like to get the, a cooktop or a range on an outside wall, because lots of kitchens are L-shaped, and that way I can put the refrigerator in that other part of the L and not elsewhere, completely, because you want something easy there's something to be said about the triangle. And then there's other things to be said about just the work zone itself. We call them hot zones and cool zones.
Right.
Where are we prepping? Okay. And cleaning up. And then where are we? And then where are you cooking? Right. So the cool zone being just the prepping, cleaning up, washing up, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree, because I will say this. We do tell people when they're picking appliances and they're looking at their space, even the worst, a really bad, poorly designed kitchen will function Monday through Friday for people, 350 days a year. It's those few holidays. I've seen so many beautiful kitchens, poorly designed, that while it looks a lot better than the old kitchen, the functional space doesn't function any better for them at the end of the day when they do entertain. So it's great you're asking those questions. We point that up because the French door refrigerator is perfect. Everyone wants one, but I say, okay, where this is placed in this design, there's nowhere to put this thing you just took out of the fridge down. You got to walk all the way across it, so that type of thing. And it's really good. It gets people's mind going. And I think that's when they have aha moments and they realize, okay, wow, yeah, I got some more thinking to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do love the range tops too. I do think that a range top, is great. I quite often will tell people, if you don't want to spend the money on the big range, go for the range top, or at least a 36-inch cooktop, because you're doing a lot on top of your counter.
Yeah.
And then we will go for, the ovens either in a depending on where it needs to be. If they've got wall space, we'll put it in a wall. If they don't, when people tell you to take down a wall between their kitchen and their family room, or their kitchen and their dining room, all of a sudden it's, well, those tall things that were fitting there, where are we now going to put things? Right.
Yes.
So we can't really do tall. So we may put them in islands, or we've got to find the space somewhere.
Right.
Pantry space. Where are you now going to put all these items? So those are, and lots of times for me, I like designing. One of the things that we do is we'll take somebody's living room. It's a quarter of the real estate in their home when they've got these center entrance colonials, right? That are here in New England. And I'll say, let's make that the formal dining room, sitting room, especially if people have family rooms, separate family room, because that's where they're spending all their time. Then we can take their dining room, and that space can be pantry space. It can be some desk space, let's say, like a little tiny homework area. It can be a bar, right? We can create space. It can have the big table in it that's more of a family type table, where opening up to the kitchen, and it allows us to, because we've now taken down that wall to the dining room.
Right.
So now we can make the whole kitchen, all this space an L, and it's much more comfortable and it's more inviting for a family. The living room could be a table that's, it could be a 42-inch round table. It could be a card table, that can expand, or we can, the 2 times a year you have the big dinners, the Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever. You can bring in and rent your tables and chairs, and 30 people in there, and it'll look lovely in front of a fireplace. But you can put a piano in there. You can put a desk in there. You can put a chaise in there. You could be a nice little reading nook, but it's a room that nobody ever sits in.
Right. True. Good point. We are appliance guys. I got to jump on this really real quick because I got excited by our question.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Fisher Paykel appliances? I'm considering their induction range and counter depth fridge. A sleeper brand. I'm telling you, that brand is on the up. They have a ways to go, but owned by a very large parent company, sister company to GE Monogram, another, I think, in 23 going into 24, a brand that desperately needed it, that'll have a lot of new introductions with style and design, still has a way to go, but a great sleeper brand. And particularly their price to value, I think it's great. Counter depth refrigerator is great. The only one that you can actually panel, 72 inches tall, flush with 24-inch deep cabinets, and then they make a couple others in stainless steel. But so I think you're on the right track, Julie.
Yeah, and I love their dual dishwasher.
Yes.
I think, I think that that's a great product. I like to say it's for empty nesters and bachelors or bachelorettes, whatever. It's great. It's not really for a family because you go crazy, but I think it's a wonderful product. And I agree. I think their induction range. It's actually my daughter's getting that right now.
Great
Don't
product.
they? I want to say they also do a counter depth fridge that I think is handleless.
Yes.
It's really cool.
So they've kind of taken, for those folks that either don't have it within their budget, don't have the ceiling height for a taller fridge, but really either want to panel it. To Jodi's point, handleless. Like they've really started to try to make, hey, not everyone can afford and not anyone have the space to fit. And why can't we make a really well done refrigerator for all those folks? Because that's a lot of us. And then second to that,
one into a stairwell.
Oh yeah, I mean the great application.
That's great.
And then I'll also say they are going to KBiz next week, which we'll talk at the end, which we will be filming live from KBiz. We will be talking about and really giving you sneak peeks on the things that we're seeing that are soon to market or in the future products and things that kind of get us excited as appliance folks and kitchen folks. That they will be launching. They will be launching actually a traditional dishwasher. They've had one today, and it's made for them by a different company, and it was kind of an OEM play. This new one is a first built, totally flush, European, with some really cool technology, and I haven't even put my own eyes on it, but I'm excited. And it's coming out in March to the market, so we'll be filming that live next week from KBiz. So good company, up and coming. Good question, Julie.
And I will also say, I can't speak to their induction range, but induction just as a product, I think is miraculous. And I really think, most of the time that that we've been I'm doing at least 50% induction ranges.
Yeah, we certainly love them. You're going to see a lot more of them, and particularly getting bigger in size. So starting to see those pro range brands having, other than just 30-inch stoves, which has been out there for the most part, 36 and 48s, and a lot of towns and cities trying to get behind these green initiatives and gas, and some of the recent reports coming out on gas. So induction is two things. It's growing in options, and as it grows in popularity, the prices are actually becoming more affordable. So, while certainly you can still spend a bunch of money, you can get one very affordably. So it really hits a broad range of the market. So good point on that, Jodi, on the induction play.
So, earlier we talked a lot about kind of the first question was, what are some of the first questions that you ask a new client? On that kind of same note, is there anywhere that you would suggest that they look for inspiration or look for ideas, something new to bring you ideas? Anything that you would recommend there?
I'm a big fan of using Houzz, the Houzz platform, as well as like Pinterest boards. A lot of people use Canvas, and they start, they'll put together their own boards. They could try to get really creative with that. So for me, it's I actually ask both clients quite often to if it's a couple, to take to put together their own boards and their own inspiration. It's interesting because there's always, most of the time, I'll say, 85% of the time, I'll be able to marry an idea and a thought as to what this space what the client really wants it to look like. And usually I will also ask them to, pinpoint what it is they like about the space, so it could just be that the tile is something that they like, or it could be just the color of the cabinet, or it could be a lighting fixture, or it could be an appliance. So just to say, this is, kind of the look that it makes it easy because obviously they're paying us by the hour to, to put together their project. And it makes we can design so much quicker. We really can. So that's always a great way to allow people to, and I also like to have people, I like to take people to our job sites. And when we are able to take people to our job sites, they're able to kind of really see the nitty gritty. And I like to show them it's dirty. You're not going to have your kitchen for a while.
Right. Okay, great. What else do we have, Fran?
So just kind of like challenges, we've talked about challenges, and obviously every project certainly comes with its own challenges. And now as we're slowly moving away from COVID, are there any new challenges there, or have things started to improve kind of coming out of the COVID era, if you will?
I'm going to say yes. I think people, the expectations, people didn't want to hear supply chain, right? But supply chain is a thing. So as long as we're talking to people, there's a lot we can do before we get cabinets in. And as long as they are willing to wait, you mentioned this earlier, that people don't always want to wait. And, but if they're willing to wait, then we can really get through the planning process, making sure that things are going to come in I'm going to say realistic post-COVID way, that we're able to then, once their project gets moving, that it just keeps moving forward.
Yeah, great point. I would share certainly on our end, because we're aligned on these projects a lot. Absolutely, still delays, but I'll also say absolutely seeing improvements. And, we would say right now we're in a better stock position than we've been in the last 2.5, coming on 3 years. And actually to the point now where if you're out there, you're in the market, you have appliances, and maybe someone else can't deliver, call us. I mean, we're doing a lot better. Not perfect. Still have certain brand challenges and model specific challenges, but it is improving. And the bigger thing, kind of great for us, I felt like COVID, we all kind of hung on and got through it, and it was managing expectations, and all of us, customers, ourselves, just feeling frustrated, just trying to get things going. The good thing for us is I am starting to see some innovation again on the appliance side. And that's why I haven't been to KBIS, Kitchen and Bath show that's happening in Las Vegas next week. I haven't been in years, because for so many years, there just wasn't anything new that we hadn't seen, or that we weren't the first to see ourselves. But this year, there's a lot of new launches. So we will be talking about those things. And I think all these new color trends, I think through COVID, and Jodi, I don't know on your end, but you were talking about some of the new color challenges and changes. We all had to kind of try some new brands, some new ways we did things. And honestly, I will say we figured out maybe we didn't figure them all out. We quickly recognized every crack in the dam in our processes. And I think that the customers moving forward will continue to be the beneficiary of that. And as the supply chains, there's some new brands, new products, and I think we all have been forced to get better in our own businesses. That's good for customers down the road.
No, I agree. I mean, I've had to take a look at some other cabinet lines. We're having cabinets made locally rather than shipping them, because shipping it's been difficult. It's been difficult to get product here. It's been difficult because there's not enough truck drivers, right? So we're dealing with those, some of those issues here. Loving, certain people we're having fun. We're having fun with powder rooms. Okay. It has nothing to do with kitchen, but I'm having fun with plumbing. People are putting together, we're doing black faucets, and let's face it, I love the GE Cafe line. I think that's a great line to work with people who say, I may not be able to afford some of the more luxury lines, but they're having fun with it, and there are some colors, and I love their copper, their handles. It's and especially the little double ovens that the double ranges. People are charged by that, and it's a little different for them, especially since they've been in their tired kitchens, and this is something new that
Absolutely.
they can put in, and it looks good. It looks good, and it works well, right?
Absolutely.
It performs.
Two quick ones. Richard followed up on that Fisher Paykel comment. Liked the fridge, had a dishwasher, didn't like 3 days of catastrophe. Richard, I would only say this. It could have very well been a catastrophe. But I will say 99% of the time with the Fisher Paykel, you need an authorized installer to install it. People like us. You could find your own in your own market. I don't know where your market is. There's a why. It installs very differently than most dishwashers because it has two separate drains. And if that fridge is not perfectly level, and that Y is not perfectly plumbed by someone that knows how to do that, and then both loop the drain lines behind it, it'll back up and you will have floods like crazy. So don't want to throw salt in an old wound. Maybe it was something more than that, but we see that a lot when it's not installed by an actual professional that's authorized. The second question was somebody asked about Sub-Zero was the go-to brand for panel-ready refrigerators. They're still backlogged with delivery 12 months out. If you call us, that may not be the case. We're sitting on $34 million worth of inventory. We talked about warehouses. We have 4 of them. We're building a 240,000 square foot warehouse in Norton, Mass, slated to open in September. We have some, I'm not saying every model. So any of the Yale customers that has a model back ordered, trust me, if we can't get it for you, we're trying. But we do have some. It is starting to ease up. They are running 11 months. There are other options. I will say this one thing for Sub-Zero in its defense. When it says 11 months or 12 months, it's accurate within 2 weeks of that date. For the most part, 99.9% of the time. Whereas other brands will tell us, because we get factory lead times, a much shorter time frame, and we all felt great selling it. But guess what? 5 months has come and gone. It's turning on 10 months now, and now you're really upset. So sometimes I say with them, it's not always the best, but the thing we want to hear, but it's probably what we need to hear, and we can probably work a project around a realistic expectation as opposed to just a made-up one. So just to know, think about it. And if you're buying it out in Chicago from Apt, I have some really good friends that own another big appliance company out there. We can talk offline maybe, and might be able to help you out with that Fisher Paykel or helping you with it. But Apt is certainly reputable. So what else you got, Fran?
Last question, just one final question for Jodi, and back to your business. What else do? You do kitchens, baths, anything else that you offer to clients, and anything else you'd like to talk about your business?
We do. So we do kitchens and baths. So I work with a dozen different contractors, and we basically try to make these contractors, we're their partners, and we make them look like a design build firm is really what it is. We do full home renovations. So it is not unusual for us to kind of come in and, as I mentioned, kind of move things around a house so that if you need an addition, I would introduce you to an architect first. Mm-hmm. But if you don't, and then a lot of people start with us first. And so we'll do basements. We'll do, obviously, the more a contractor, GC can chew on, the more attractive a project is for them, right? So they like doing bathrooms with kitchens, they like doing basements, they like doing attic spaces, whatever, however, maybe converting a sunroom, things like that. So they like doing that type of work. What I'm doing is less just bathroom work, because it just, building a kitchen, you're using every single tradesperson. You could be building a little house. Building a bathroom is the same. So
right.
Yeah, and I always say the only people who are getting rich doing bathrooms is the tiler and the plumber. That's it. It's never easy. So that's something that sometimes I'll talk to people and say, look, if you're looking to do a bathroom, hold on until you've got a bigger project.
Right. That's great advice. And that's where I think being part of like Pro New England, some of the affiliates you have, when you need to pull in those experts, you can. So you can at least advise clients to, hey, here's your people if you want to even go bigger, which is kind of great to have someone that does all the things you do, but also can refer to other folks that you trust.
Right.
As the project sometimes evolves, as we know. We started in the kitchen, and good Lord, now we're tearing the house pretty much down to the studs, and it keeps going.
Oh, yeah. I'm working on a small little home, I think, in Wellesley, and they're finding all kinds of rot and all kinds of issues that, you just better to find it now. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why throw good money after bad? I'm doing a project where, said, look, you're doing all this work in your basement. Why not just change out your water heater, right?
Yeah.
Because it's 9 years old already.
Yes.
Why wait for that problem to happen after you've got this great space and you're putting in a dehumidifier, all of that. So
Right.
why not just, I know it's an extra $2,500 you didn't want to spend, but
Sure.
why wait for your water heater to break down, and flood, which they do.
Yeah. Now, Jeff asked a question going back to the last one. What entry-level jobs are most in demand right now in the kitchen and bathroom? Totally asking for my son. I can tell you this, Jeff, don't know where you are, but certainly on our end of that little part of the business, installers of appliances and service technicians. And you do not, entry level is fine. So we have full-blown training programs because, and then I'll kick it off to Jodi. I mean, finding good tradespeople are in demand. You have to train them. A lot of them don't come with the skill set, which is fine. But if they have the aptitude and the energy and the drive, there's a lot of, I know on our end, we certainly train folks, and it's a great job.
Yeah, one of the things that Pro New England definitely goes after is the trade schools. They really want to make trade schools cool again, right? And a lot of people have talked about, college. And college is not for everyone, and a lot of people are coming out and they don't know what to do, right? So trade school is really a great way to get your foot in the door. And a lot of the contractors that I know, this organization is committed to bringing people in, from these trade schools. And actually they do a fair. They do a trade fair every single year in Bolton. They have one in, I believe it was October. We were all there. And these kids are really interested. And some of it isn't just, they have an electrical component. They bring them in from all over. So it's, you do want to get somebody who's a professional. It is great. They may not have their license yet, but they are be working with someone who is licensed. And of course, yes, you always want to have somebody who is a licensed professional, at least running your project.
Yeah, so I think lots of opportunities. Jeff said he's in the Seattle metro area. On our end, reach out to Albert Lee, the biggest dealer out there in Seattle, good friends of ours and a great outfit. I know they're always looking for good people. So that might just be a lead to connect with them. And if not, on our side, they certainly are connected with everyone in that market. So they're great people. They'd certainly try to help you, I'm sure. What else do we have?
I think that's it for today. So Jodi, thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of really great information here. And obviously anybody that's looking for design help, design needs, check out Jodi Swartz, KitchenVisions from the Metro West area here in Massachusetts. She does a phenomenal job. We've been involved in a lot of her projects and have seen them firsthand. So top notch. So really, really great job.
Yeah, I don't think there's a project on my website where the appliances didn't come from Yale.
We certainly thank you for trusting us there. And I will say, I'm both thrilled to have you, depressed at the same time, because once again, more activity from the audience. As soon as we hang up, I know they're going to be like, oh, Jodi was amazing. Jodi was amazing. Yeah. We've been waiting to hear those words for a long time, Fran, from our listening audience. But it's no doubt because I said yesterday, listening to Jodi and working with her for the years, we know how great she does. But just listening to her talk again, it's just so important to get professionals on your team when you're doing something that's so intimate to your home, which is the kitchen, because it's where it all starts.
It is. And patience, people.
Patience. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Fran,
right.
What do you want to do?
One final thing. So I know I did say that the show is going to every other week, but we do have, of course, just kicking off the new year, we do have a special show next week, as Dennis kind of mentioned. It's going to be next Wednesday, 1:00 Eastern time. Dennis will be live from the show floor at KBiz. So checking out some new product, new launches. Hopefully we get to see some cool stuff and get to show you some cool stuff that might be coming out here in the near future.
Yeah, and all the complaints that we've had, which are fair, we're aligned with a lot of them. We'll air them out to the manufacturers. So if you have some you want us to get in there and get them, we'll be there to do it.
Absolutely.
Well, I would love for you. They have all those professional chefs, right?
Yes.
I would love for you to get them on, like, some statements from them about what they love about cooking with induction. Because when I first started talking induction, I'm not an appliance salesperson, right?
Yes.
That's where I started. I just started interviewing. I started asking the chefs who were out there cooking, saying, what do you love about induction? So get it on.
Yeah, it would be great. And even if you go back to the Yale blog files too, we have a lot of our guest chefs, a lot of our in-house chefs that have done induction. And to your point, I think the point you're making is, show people how to use it, like make it easy and approachable, because and I will say in our stores, 90% of the induction cooktops are live. So if you want to come in and test drive with us, we'd love to have you. But certainly, good takeaway. And we'll certainly, we'll look to do that. I will say this, we will also follow up on the Yale website. We will be down there with a full marketing team. We are going to be doing one-on-ones with 8 of the major manufacturers, really with the product specialists and the design teams, talking about their top entrants into this year's KBIS. So there'll be little snippets coming out by brand over the following weeks after the KBIS. So again, kind of that sneak peek and what we're really excited about, hearing from the people that actually design them, make them, and kind of inspire us with some of their stuff right live. Hearing it from those folks will kind of be a cool twist, and I think
I'm jealous. I wish I was going this year.
All right, Jodi. Well, listen, maybe next year we'll get out there and we'll tear it up together, and maybe we'll do a show out there. Who knows?
Have fun. Yeah,
Thanks,
everyone.
Be well.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.